Hey guys, welcome to the Foundry Podcast. I'm your host, Ep5, and today I'm joined by Ms. Carissa Doig from our aerial arts program here at the Foundry. So before we get started, Carissa, if you could just introduce yourselves.
Sure.
Tell me what you do, where you come from.
Okay, so I do a lot. My name is Carissa. I'm an aerial arts instructor and program director here at the Foundry. I've been doing aerial arts since I turned about, 33 and a half, and I'm 40 now, so I'm terrible at math, so I'll leave that to y'all. I've also been teaching media arts and involved in television and radio since 2012. So again, math, I'll leave that to y'all. So for a while, but interesting story. I have multiple sclerosis, and I found out that I had MS when I turned 30, and I went blind for about 3.5 months in both eyes and lost some body functions and things like that, and then slowly regained it. And when I regained everything back, I found aerial arts. And I hated exercising before aerial arts. Like, everybody's like, oh, exercise will help. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. I found aerial arts. I took a class, fell in love with it, and I was just hooked. And so
you found it after?
I found it after I had MS, yeah.
Awesome.
And so I took my first aerial arts class once I started to regain motor function. And I've been hooked ever since. And, I learned a little bit slower than everybody else, but I just loved it so much. And so I've been teaching it now for about, I would say, almost 6 years, maybe a little bit more than that. And so I've done everything from lyra, which everybody knows is the big, large, they call it a hula hoop, but it's a metal circle. So it's definitely a solid metal circle that hangs from the ceiling. To silks, which are the fabrics, also known as the curtains that you climb on from the ceiling, to dance trapeze, which is a trapeze that doesn't swing back and forth. It spins around in a circle. Okay. So that one's fun. And pole. So I also do pole fitness. We'll talk a little bit about that, I'm sure. And I do hair hanging as well. So right now I'm in the process of growing out the hair so that we can hang by it again. Because, everybody wants to do that one.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Especially me.
Yes.
So you mentioned there's different types of aerial arts there.
Yes.
Where does it all come from?
Oh, so many different places. So pole originated in China.
Okay.
And so Chinese pole was the first place that it originated. It was really an acrobatic act. And so it wasn't the kind of pole that you first think of, which I won't say out loud, but I'm sure everybody's thinking right now, the first kind of pole that you think of when you hear, pole. And then, the rest of aerial arts originated in Europe. And so there's different names for it. And, I think France, a lot of it comes from France, and was brought over to America. And we are kind of late in the game to adopt all of these sports, but it's an actual sport. So it's not just entertainment. It's something that people compete in federations. And so our students are just tried out to make our Foundry aerial arts team, and they'll be competing in nationals.
That's awesome.
Which is very exciting. And if they make the team, they'll be on Team USA. And if they make Team USA, then they get to go compete in different countries.
That's awesome.
Which is amazing. So it's a great opportunity.
So I know it as like circus arts, so you see it in some aspects of the circus and so forth. You said the lyra is the hoop or the metal circle, basically.
Yep. Also known as aerial hoop.
And then you have the silks, and then you have the trapeze, and then the pole. Of all of those, what's your favorite?
Lyra.
The lyra.
Aerial pole, aerial hoop. And then pole is second.
Awesome.
Yeah, I like aerial hoop first. My least favorite is the silks. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say it right now. It moves. And once you're used to an object that is, solid steel, and you're able to move within that object and use that centrifugal force with you, and then you get on these things that just slide back and forth, you're like, well, why are they moving? How come they're not obeying me? So silks are a challenge for me. So we're still working on that. I don't hate them. Yes, I do. but I'm working on it.
I got you.
So, yeah.
So obviously it sounds like silks is your least favorite, but it's still enjoyable.
It's still enjoyable, and I enjoy hammock, which is a form of silks. It's just tied into a hammock, or otherwise known as sling. So, yeah. So there's a couple different names for some of these apparatus, and once you get on Instagram, you find out all the hashtags, all the different hashtags for that. But it's circus arts or aerial arts, really.
Awesome.
Very different from what we call aerial yoga, which is a completely different thing on its own.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that we have aerial arts team and performance, but I also know that you are part of a federation. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I am part of the U.S. Aerial Federation. And the U.S. Aerial Federation competes in aerial hoop or lyra hoop, fly pole, which we don't have yet, but I'm working on it. Okay. Or flying pole is another name for it, and pole. So we're excited to get ready for this new season coming up because we're in competition season right now. So the U.S. Aerial Federation, though, is a federation that we're hoping is going to take this sport to the Olympics. And so that is our hope for it, is we do believe that our future is Olympic and that we can totally get there. And I do believe that these sports really deserve the recognition, because if you've ever tried it before, and I'm going to throw pole out there as a primary example. Right, because I feel like pole has this really negative connotation, or it's, people just insinuate certain things about pole because they hear pole and all of a sudden something pops into your head. It is a sport. It's very gymnastics oriented, and I feel like if you haven't seen it done as a sport, or you haven't tried it as a fitness in the fitness aspect of it, you won't realize that. But what I love about doing it at Foundry is that we're able to do it out in the open, and people can watch and see what we're doing, and they can see that it's an actual sport, and they can come over and they can try it. And I've even had people come over and ask me questions about it, which I love.
So with the pole, I can understand what you're saying. A lot of people have like a negative connotation of it. But when I look at it, I see like the amount of physical, like just how much goes into it. It's so physically demanding, and it really makes you focus on the technique. It makes you learn skills, and just like a lot of things that we do here in the Foundry, it's all fitness based.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, it's not like it's really difficult to get bored, because there's always new skills. There's always new things to learn, and as you said before, maybe you could talk about this a little bit. It becomes a little addictive when you start learning new skills.
Yeah, it totally is. I mean, and what I love about the Foundry too is when we first got here, right? Like we have weightlifters and we have everybody that does HIIT training and all that. And they came over and they were like, I could do that, especially like gymnastics. They were like, no problem, I could do that. And I was like, okay, guys. So I just want you to hold your hand here, take this hand here, hold it across your face, and then I want you to lift. And they were like, piece of cake. So here, nothing. Here, nothing. And I was like, so you're exercising muscles that you haven't used before. So with aerial, you're actually getting a full body workout from every single apparatus. And I think that in itself, you've got the adrenaline going. Your what's it called when your endorphins are up, because exercising makes you happy. It brings your endorphins up. But then on top of it all, we teach you tricks, which is amazing, because then you get to, show off a little bit, which is nice. So every single time you come in, we have either a sequence or a new trick to teach you or something like that. And so quite honestly, the possibilities of aerial and pole are kind of endless, because you get in there and once you learn something, you go, I can make a variation out of this. And so it doesn't end with just, let's say we're doing a gazelle. Okay, so we're going to do a gazelle. There's variations of that. And then from there, there's transitions. So transitions to get into another move or another trick. And from there, you can add another variation onto that. And then you start to add the music to it. And then when you add the music to it, you start to flow. And then there's that art aspect of it.
Sure.
So it's not just fitness, it's combining the fitness and the art together. And so that, I think, makes it addictive, is because you can take it in that direction of like, I've had days where, you know, they were just not good days at all. Not good days at all. And I have a lyra in my office at home. And there's been days where I've just shut the door and cranked the music and turned on, you know, the funky lights. And I've just spun around and made, you know, all these funky combos and things like that. And then as soon as I'm done, it feels so good, because it's a release from all that. Yeah. So it's a great release from all that. It's a great workout. You get that art aspect of it. And then once you really start to get into competition and performance, then you add in the costumes and the makeup. And it's just, for me, it's a perfect combination. So,
well, I've been at a lot of the different showcases you've done, since you're talking about performances. And, you know, I also think, you know, one of the benefits to having the program here in the gym is not only is it teaching skills, it's giving a great workout, but then it's also introducing people to, you know, potential performance art, performance activities. And so we've seen our youth athletes, our adult athletes, both in several showcases here in Beaufort, South Carolina. And like, as a father of one of the athletes, I enjoy it. And I like going and taking pictures and videos and stuff. But, you know, I really, not knowing much about it when you first came in here, you know, there's so much in the opportunities category, and you see it more in like movies and TV and other kinds of even plays we saw recently. There was a play that kind of went over like
right.
I think it was called Thorn,
yeah.
And it incorporated a lot of that in there, in a set piece that was, you know, like a dramatic performance, like a ballet almost, but instead of using just ballet and music, they're using aerial arts.
And martial arts too.
Which
was kind of cool.
Which we like to do.
Yeah,
here
you
too.
can combine the two, which, you know, you would never think, but you can. So yeah, I love that aspect of it. Is it's not just competition oriented, it's not just fitness and sport oriented, but then you can take it in the direction of show. Yeah. And so when you take it in the direction of show, you take it not just in a completely different direction, but you're actually introducing a whole new audience to that sport, where they would go, oh, geez, well, I never thought you could do that before.
Sure.
And speaking of which, we have an upcoming performance tomorrow night that I just learned about this morning on something that's called a lollipop. And a lollipop is essentially an aerial hoop or a lyra that is placed on top of half of a pole. And that spins around. And so that requires a lot of strength too, because as you can imagine, trying to keep yourself on something that's constantly spinning around, that's solid metal, you know, that's a challenge in itself, but then also making it look pretty on top of that, right? And not falling off and transitioning.
I think that's cool too, the innovation that you see with the combination of different styles. It's like, you know, I'm a martial arts instructor, and I really appreciate mixed martial arts because it combines jiu-jitsu and boxing and wrestling and all that stuff together. But then I look back at the aerial studio area, and it's like, okay, you have your lyras, and you have your poles, and you have your silks, and then you have silks on poles, and you have lyras on poles.
We do, yes.
And you have silks on lyras, and just the full combination of incorporating all the different skills together, and then you just come up with your own stuff.
Right. And I would keep going if I could. I mean, there's just so many straps we could do. So straps is another one, and straps requires a lot of wrist strength, and that's what you could do with partner straps, and that's a lot of fun. Dance trapeze is one of my favorites. So I love dance trap. But I mean, if you can think about it, and you can come up with it as an aerialist, right? We can make it work.
Sure.
We've even done aerial from chandeliers before. Wow. Special chandeliers. They're aerial chandeliers, so they're specially made. Yeah. But there's all different sorts of apparatus that we can adhere to and we can perform on, which is, I think, another aspect that makes that sport so addictive and fun is it's ever flowing, ever changing. And that's where that art aspect comes into the sport too.
Mm-hmm. And we mentioned before, we have youth competitors, youth athletes, and we also have youth performers. How young do we start the classes here? And, what are the benefits for children getting involved in aerial?
We start with Little Aerialist 1, and Little Aerialist 1 starts at age 6. And then we have Little Aerialist 2. Now, Little Aerialist 1 and Little Aerialist 2 are split up because it's really ages 6 to 9. But once you hit a certain point at Little Aerialist 1, which we really focus on fundamentals and strength and getting used to the apparatus and not being afraid of the apparatus, because that's a whole thing, then you move into Little Aerialist 2, and that's usually like 8, 9, 7, 8, 9. And from there, you graduate to Youth Aerial. Youth Aerial is 10 plus, and we like to say like 10, 15-ish, really. And then from Youth Aerial, you have a chance to try out for competition team. Competition team is you start competing at age 10. Okay. So 10 to adult. We have adults that compete. So we even have adults on our competition team. And then we have our adult aerial, which is, I like to say, at parental discretion, right? 15 plus. Right. I really like to say 18 plus, but at parental discretion, if you feel like your child is ready at age 15 to be in with the adults, then I'm okay with that. And then we get them started in an adult aerial. Yeah.
And as far as like the kids, I mean, I like watching the kids. I mean,
yeah.
They're
great.
I'm a fan.
They're so talented.
They're super talented. And the stuff that they do is just, I can't fathom the abilities.
I gotta say, like, the talent pool in Beaufort, like, blows me away because I was in another city before this. And before that, I was up north in Connecticut. And you would think, it's like close to New York. And the other city I was in, it's very art oriented. And then I came to Beaufort and I was like, holy Toledo, like, these kiddos are amazing. They have the dance background, they have the gymnastics background, and then they get on the aerial apparatus. And once that music starts, they shine. It's amazing. Yeah.
And they all have their own personalities.
They do. They all have their own personalities, which is fun. I mean, challenging at times, but fun, very fun.
And so I like watching the kids because like just the confidence that they get from it. And I talked with Maddie about gymnastics a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about like, I really feel that youth sports, youth activities is one of the main takeaways, besides the fitness side of it, besides, giving them opportunity to compete, should be about building their self-esteem, their confidence, their ability to handle struggle, conflict, internally as well, because, some of those moves are not easy. Some of them take a lot of failure to perfect.
Some of them are scary.
And they're scary,
Just downright scary.
And so, I definitely... Like I said, when I'm watching the youth athletes training and when I go to competitions and showcases and watch it, it's just when you see it click. Yeah. That's a really good feeling.
Yeah. I gotta say, your daughter performed one of the scariest moves earlier on. And I was super surprised because she just I don't know how she just went right into it. And I was like, wow. Holy cow, she can do a single knee hang. And we've only been practicing that for like a week. And she the lines were clean. And that's exactly what we look for. Is there's something called clean lines, right? We don't want any micro bends or anything like that. And so we look for like clean lines and things like that in aerial. And, some of these kids, they get into these moves and you're just like, I've been doing this for a while and I can't do that. So, I mean, good for them.
I get that.
And they all have different talents and strengths, and some of them are more flexible than others and some of them are stronger than others. Sure. But in this sport, we can balance that out with the way that we design our routines.
And so there's a difference, obviously, between performance, competition, and then just skill building as far as the mentality goes. As a coach, as somebody who's been instructing for a while, what's your approach based on what the athlete is doing?
You mean as far as how do we get them from point A to B?
Yeah.
Skill building is
For sure.
Right? We definitely start with skill building, because without the strength and certain muscles, you know, it's going to be frustrating for aerial. And so I do a lot of conditioning with my students, and I'm kind of known as like the conditioning queen when it comes to aerial, which is okay by me, because I have had students go to other studios and come back and they've said, you know, they're still working on their, you know, this, that, and the other, and we're surpassing them. And I'm like, well, what are they doing for conditioning? And they said they didn't do anything for conditioning. Yeah. I was like, okay, well, there we go. So we start with the basic fundamentals, which is conditioning. And with conditioning, you learn self-discipline.
For sure.
Because nobody wants to do the conditioning. Not even me. But I know that you have to do it in order to get somewhere.
For sure.
And so that helps to build self-discipline for the athlete. Once we learn the conditioning and the self-discipline, I watch to see where everybody's at. So I assess everybody's strength and their capabilities as far as on the apparatus. Because for me, safety is very important when you're dangling from an apparatus, even if there's mat underneath you. And so I wait and I see also courage. I want to see what personality-wise, what their emotions are, where their head's at while they're up on that apparatus. And so we kind of gauge all of that together. And then from there, we put together certain steps in order to learn these skills and these tricks. So they may learn something like a gazelle, which is a pretty basic move, but they may learn it in certain steps. Like I might break it down. I might go, okay, first we're going to learn a balance move. After we learn a balance move, we're going to work on our hollow bodies in the air. After we work on our hollow bodies in the air, we're going to work on something called some of these are really, you know, morbid. We're going to work on a coffin. And then after we work on a coffin, we're going to go to feint. After we go to coffin to feint, which requires a lot of core strength just to keep yourself up, now we're going to go into gazelle. Now we're going to work on that active flexibility. Okay. If we don't have active flexibility, then we work on some passive flexibility in order to get there. So we just break it down. And the one thing that I am very, very aware of is I don't want my youth aerialists to get frustrated. Because it's so easy to get frustrated when you first come into this sport. And so what I do is I take about an hour of my time and we do aerial assessments. And that assessment allows me to teach them the basic skills so that when they do come into their first class, they don't get frustrated and they don't look around and go, oh my gosh, how come that one can do a Delilah entrance and I can't pull myself up in a Delilah entrance, and how come this one can do a seat on the lyra and I haven't even learned that yet. And so I take the time to actually teach those skills before you enter a class, and then that way you don't walk away feeling defeated, because as an aerialist, that's like the worst feeling in the world. And we like to create an environment where I've been in studios where there's a lot of ego. We create an environment where like there's just no ego. We all learn from each other, and it's okay to learn at your own pace.
Sure.
And we're all fine with that. And so we learn from each other. So, you know,
I think that's, one of the paramounts of this gym across the board is safety. We want to make sure that everyone who works out here is being as safe as possible. We have the safest, environment for them, that we can provide. And also the coaches are focused on safety, which obviously you are too. I know there's some places, and I'm not disparaging anybody by saying that there's some places that don't have the same safety precautions that we use. I'm sure. But it's really important, anybody listening to this, I want you to kind of touch on this a little bit. Like, let's say you get into aerial, you watch this, maybe you look it up a little bit and you're like, hey, I want to get involved with that. And maybe you're not in Beaufort, you're not able to come to the Foundry. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about safety and trying this on your own.
Oh, my favorite subject. Can I buy a lyra and hang it from a tree? No. So many different reasons why. So as an aerial instructor and as an aerialist, we take safety so very seriously, especially when it comes to hanging apparatus. And I understand because I'm one of them, right? Like during the pandemic, I got myself a lyra, but I also had exposed beams that were holding up the entire house. So I knew what their working weight load was. They were newer beams, so they weren't old beams. They didn't have any rot or anything in them. And we knew exactly where to put the apparatus so that it was safe. But I get asked a lot, can I do this at home? Number one, if you've only taken, let's up it. If you've only taken 10 classes, right? I would say no right off the bat.
Sure.
Okay. And I'm not one to tell you what to do in your own life and in your own home, because it is your life and your home. But I will say that, full disclosure, I think it's a very poor idea to do something like that at home if you've only taken a few classes and you're not really aware of what the apparatus can do, how to rig the apparatus, how to be safe on the apparatus. And gosh, you need to have a proper safety mat. Like a small safety mat or a mattress just is not going to cut it. And so, and always train with somebody that knows what they're doing. I know a lot of people that train off of Instagram. I'm guilty. I do it. You know, I'll find something and I'll send it to one of the other coaches and I'm like, let's try this, right? But we don't come in here and try it by ourselves.
Sure.
We set up a date where we can train and watch each other and make sure that we're not getting injured, because the last thing that you want to happen is to have a serious injury. And, you know, full disclosure, aerial is dangerous, especially when it's not done properly, which is why you want to do aerial in a studio under the direction of an experienced instructor or several experienced instructors with a proper safety mat, with proper rigging that's been inspected by an engineer for, you know, the working weight load that it's at. And so, you know, if you're just kind of hanging a lyra from like an attic beam or something and you've never tried it and you don't know what the structural integrity of that attic beam is, I just don't recommend it.
Sure.
That's all.
And also, what a lot of people don't think about, and even in martial arts, you know, people don't realize that the biggest cause of most injuries from, especially in aerial arts, or definitely from aerial arts, gymnastics, and even in martial arts, is the impact with the ground. Because the ground doesn't move.
It does not. It's hard.
And as you fall, especially the higher up in silks and things like that, obviously you're falling a longer distance, you can get more momentum. So, you know, again, I understand. And I'm, you know me, I'm always like, are they being safe? Is everyone safe? And I know that you are very conscious of that as well.
Very much so. And I'm not going to throw Coach Caitlin under the bus or anything, but I'm going to tell a story because I love her. Like, Caitlin used to be my student back in the day. And she was the first injury that ever occurred when I was coaching. And this is the injury. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
It's a big one. Okay. Stubbed toe.
Oh.
Right. First injury
was
that
it on the lyra, or was it?
She was coming down from a lyra. Okay. So she was coming down from a lyra and she had a hard landing, because if you'll notice, right, everything that we do is pointed toes. So you'll hear me screaming, point your toes, point your toes. We even have stickers on them. Yeah. We have stickers that, you know, if they're not pointing their toes, I put it on their foot and I go, see, point your toes. That'll remind you. But the reason that we have every single time they come down in a hard landing and I hear any noise whatsoever, which means that they're not using their shoulders to come down. Like, they should be lifting with their shoulders as they're coming down so that they come down softly. But if I hear any noise whatsoever, it's an automatic 5 push-ups. And it's not a punishment. It's to build the strength of the shoulders, because it means that you're not engaging them. And that's all Caitlin's fault. Because of her stubbed toe.
Stubbed toe.
Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, of injuries, I think stubbed toe is probably.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, we'll take that one.
I'll take that one.
As far as that goes, I definitely, you know, I see the benefit in strength training for, again, not as a punishment, but I have this saying in my jiu-jitsu classes, for my kids' classes and stuff. It's like, when the kids are acting up or being unruly or like treating.
It happens.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
I make them do some push-ups, and it's not, again, as a punishment necessarily, but I always say this to them, and maybe people will think this is rude for me to say, but I say, if you don't want to be smart, you might as well be strong.
Well, you have
And
to be a
if you don't
disciplined
want to learn
athlete.
the technique,
Yeah.
and you want to just do whatever, then you're just going to take the time getting stronger, because then you'll be able to control what you have a little
It's
bit
true.
better.
I mean, being an athlete requires a certain level of self-discipline. And I feel like that's something that some youth athletes have to learn, because you don't just walk into a sport and you're an automatically self-disciplined athlete.
Yeah,
It doesn't
course.
work that way. You have to learn it. And so that's part of learning how to be self-disciplined.
And it's ongoing too, and that's why you have coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Because even as motivated as you are as
Sometimes.
a coach, it's good to have somebody coach you too.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And then that's why I go to other studios. So if I ever get a vacation again, then when we go, the first thing I'll do is I'll Google the nearest aerial studio. Now, I won't tell them I'm an instructor, not because I'm trying to be covert or I'm trying to throw anybody under the bus, but I'm looking to see how they teach. I'm trying to learn new teaching techniques. And I feel like as an instructor, that's super important, is that you're always keeping on the up and up and learning from other instructors. And in Beaufort, we're lucky in the fact that we are a military town. And so, yes, people do move in and out, but with that comes instructors from different states that have all this experience.
True.
And they share. And I feel like that will keep our studio from getting stagnant.
Yeah.
So
It's a pro and con of being in a military town. And like, from my experience doing this for so many years, you get a few years and then you have to say, see you later, you know, or you'll get people who, like you said, maybe come in and bring something great to the program from another area. But, you know, I think that it's cool because to make it sound a little weird, I guess, our DNA is all over the world coming from here, because you get people in Japan who are stationed here in Beaufort. You get people in the Middle East who are stationed here in Beaufort.
Right.
You get people in Africa and Asia and Europe and all that stuff. And they all, you know, they can tell their stories of when I was at the Foundry.
Yep.
And it goes all over the world. And that's one of the benefits of it, is like, maybe even, you know, I wouldn't say our aerial program is a small program. I think that we have, you know, quite a few lyras and stuff up at the same time. But in the worldwide setting, who knows about Beaufort, South Carolina? You know, it's not even that big of a place. But
it's true.
But it does allow us to get the
word out there.
The word out there.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think so too. And I love the fact that and I know people come in and out, and some people are like, well, you know, they're military, they're only going to be here for a little while. And I love that aspect of it, because I hate it when they leave.
Sure.
I mean, it's sad, but I love that we get new people. Like AJ, right, is a brand new instructor that we have. She's from Arizona. She's been doing aerial for 7 years, and she brings with her an abundance of information and experience, and she lives right down the street. So, you know, that's wonderful. And Caitlin's from Savannah too, so that's great. So, and I'm sure as we progress and we kind of get the word out, we'll get more people that are like, hey, I don't have to do this in my backyard in my rig anymore. And that's full disclosure. That's not, you know, we're doing aerial. These are experienced aerialists that have invested in like a $4,000 or $5,000 rig.
And it's still dangerous.
Yeah. It's still dangerous. Yes.
Always.
So it's always still dangerous. So we highly encourage doing it at a studio, which is why AJ is, you know, happy that she's found a studio to instruct at and to teach at and to train at.
Now, I wanted to also talk about this. We're starting a new program coming up in March. And if you watch this after March, then we've already started it. So come visit. But we're doing bungee fitness.
Yeah.
So I've seen a little bit of bungee fitness. I know a lot of people enjoy the concept of it, but let's talk about that a little bit. What's bungee fitness?
Well, you know me, I'm an aerialist, so anything that I can hang from or whatever, I'm gonna try it. So, bungee fitness is you're harnessed in. There's a bungee in back of you. It's a very low impact but effective workout. And I find as an aerialist, and I'll be the first to admit, aerialists, we're not good at cardio. We don't really do a lot of cardio. It looks like we do. Our endurance is great. We don't do a lot of cardio. For me, I love the bungee fitness aspect of it because I only did it, I think, up there for about 20 minutes. And I came out and I was sweating. I mean, I was like, that is a lot of cardio for me that I have not done in a long time. And it was fun because I got to fly in like a superhero position. And then I was doing the inverted handstands with my legs up on the bungee, and which we won't do for beginners. But it's a lot of fun, and you get to, it's low impact. You're going toward the ground. So it's kind of like you've got to get over that fear, but then you go through and you're like, oh, this is so much fun. So it's a great group activity where you can, bring a whole party of your friends and listen to some bumping music. And we've rigged the whole upstairs with some awesome black lights.
That's really cool. Yeah.
So we're going to shut the lights out and turn on the black lights and party with some bungee fitness. So y'all can wear your neon colors and take some videos and pictures, and it'll just be like neon figures bouncing up and down, which will be very cool. But it's
works,
fun.
And it works for like multiple ages as well, too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've had kids try it already. But for the kids, they were like, I'll go back to the lyra. Right? They were like, lyra is more exciting. Okay.
Exactly.
But for adults, I think it's a great group activity for like, I don't know, anybody 18 plus, really.
So it's good workout. It's fun time, good time with friends.
Oh, yeah.
Do we do any kind of special bookings like bachelorette parties and stuff
we
like
can
that?
do bachelorette parties. We can do birthday parties. We can do corporate team building parties,
Cool, yeah.
which I think is very cool. So you just call the Foundry and let them know that you're interested in doing a bungee fitness party, and we can set that up for you. And then we're also going to have bungee fitness classes. I don't know what those are right off the top of my head because I just sent it to our program director at the Foundry. But those are up there. I believe that's going to be every Monday and a Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Make sure you check the website if you're
Please
interested
check
in,
the website to make
that.
sure that I'm correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'm not sure. But I'm pretty sure that's what I sent. So, yeah.
So maybe somebody's watched this episode and they're like, it sounds like there's a lot that goes into it. Besides, obviously, talking to us, calling us up, stopping in, what's the first step?
To coming to an aerial program?
Do they need to get in shape before they start the program? Because that's what a lot of people say to me when they're interested in martial arts. It's like, well, I need to lose a little bit of weight. I need to get in shape, and I'm always like, you know what? You'll lose the weight here. Come on.
That's why you come to class.
Exactly, it's a fitness.
That's exactly
class.
why you come to class. No, you don't have to be. You don't have to be in shape. I mean, when I first started, I'm surprised. First of all, I'm surprised I didn't die in my first class because now I watch the videos and I'm like, oh no. Somebody was literally like pushing me up the lyra because I had no upper body strength. Yeah. But that's why you come to class. No, you don't need to be in shape. You just need to have some kind of interest in doing it. And if you're determined and you love doing it, then you'll succeed at it. I'm going to say right now, aerial's not for everybody because it is slightly painful. Right? The apparatus is slightly painful.
It's a metal bar.
It's a metal bar underneath your knee. And if you're not, 5 years old on a jungle gym, you're not used to that anymore as an adult. But and that's where silks come in. Maybe you're a silks person instead, or maybe you're a hammock person, or maybe you like bungee fitness. So there's so many different options. But I would say walk in and watch a class. Walk in, sign the waiver. And then after you sign the waiver, come on back and watch a class. And then feel free to ask questions because we don't mind answering questions at all. In fact, we love them. So we'll talk to you about aerial fitness and bungee. As many questions as you have, we'll answer them.
And I like the openness of it as well. Like we talked about before, like you can see what's going on back there. It's not private and secretive. And if you feel a little bit like, I don't want people to see what I'm doing, I'll just say this.
Yeah.
We can be embarrassed about a lot of things in life.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think that taking that first step to getting on an apparatus or trying a class, getting out of your comfort zone a little bit, that is one of the biggest steps that a lot of people struggle with, but it is so rewarding when you realize that nobody's really judging you.
Nobody's watching. The first time that I practiced here, I did a flip off lyra, and then I hung by my foot by a foot strap, and I did this whole ta-da thing, and I even had the music all turned up. And then I came down, and I landed in an aerial pose, and I looked around, and I was like, nothing.
No applause.
No applause. Nothing. Everybody's just working out, right? So everybody's in their own zone. Everybody's got their ear pods in, and they're doing their own thing, and nobody's hyper focused on you. And so there's really nothing to be embarrassed about. And I will also tell you, like, you learn a lot about being in show from here, because then if you sign up for Showcase, you get to learn about that. And like, legit, full disclosure, my first competition that I was ever in, I blacked out the whole time. It's a good thing that I had the muscle memory, and I came to so many practices because I was done, and that adrenaline kicked in, and you know how you shake after the adrenaline really kicks in? So I remember like being in my ending pose and just shaking like a leaf, and I looked around, I walked off stage, and I remember sitting back down and going to my husband, what happened?
No recall of what happened.
I mean, he was like, you did your routine. And I was like, was it good? And he was like, yeah, it was good. You're all right? And I was like, I don't remember anything. So
I think that happens to any competitor, the first competition.
For sure. But yeah, we're out in the open, but nobody's watching you.
I remember we did I think we were practicing. I say we. I was taking videos, pictures and stuff, but we had a preparation maybe for a showcase back in Habersham. And I remember, like, my daughter Olive was in the performance, and she was training, and I'll never forget taking video of that. And she's doing these techniques, and my daughter at the time I think she was only 10.
Yeah.
I think she turned 11 after that. But just the amount of support that she got from all those grown women that were back there, and not just you as a coach, but like 3, 4, 5 grown women just saying beautiful technique. And just, I recall that, like, how awesome as a parent is it to know that my daughter is building that kind of confidence in herself with the support of these adults, and they support each other too. And I just love that part of it. There's no like snickering or laughing when someone falls. There's no, oh, that would be embarrassing. It's all supportive. It's just such a great environment back there. And like, being somebody who doesn't really do aerial, I've done a couple awesome tricks that, you know, I'm sure everyone would love to see one day. But just that environment and getting to know the different people that are involved in the program, it's just a great group of people.
I'm glad you said that. That makes me happy. Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a parent. I'm not just owner of the gym. Like, my daughter does it, and she's gotten so much confidence from it.
Yeah. That's good to hear. It's good to hear.
As a 10-year-old too.
Yeah. I will say, like, we did the team practice or the team tryouts the other day, and I was like, everybody make sure that you come with your hair tightly pulled back in a bun, and we had certain regulations and whatnot. And so everybody showed up, and they were all on time, and they had their buns in their hair, and I started to give my little speech, and AJ was over here, and the other coaches were on the other side of me, and I started to give a speech, and I was like, I just want you guys to know I'm so proud of you right now. And AJ was like, get it together. And I was like, and I looked at her and I was like, could you take over for a second? And she was like, I got you. And so, like, I had to, like, I'm so proud of these kids and how far they've come. They've only been doing aerial for like 4.5 months. And one of the, somebody from the U.S. Aerial Federation even said, how long have they been doing this? And I was like, I don't know, like 4.5 months or something. She's like, holy wow, that's incredible. And she's like, and their routines, when did they? I was like, oh, they came up with those on the fly. She's like, legit? And I go, yeah. I gave them the quota points. I told them what to do, and I gave them some time to practice. They came up with them on the fly. And so, I mean, these kids are learning a lot of confidence from this sport. A lot.
Well, I am so glad to have the program here, and I'm really excited to see where we go with everything. But thank you for joining me today, Carissa.
You got
and
it.
for teaching here. I know we got competition
I got practice, yeah.
So,
competition practice.
On that, thank you again, guys, for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you later.
Thanks, guys.